This ain't some flashy performance engine. This thing is a slow revving, high duty cycle, trailer towing workhorse of an engine. And in fact, this is probably one of the most structurally overbuilt gasoline engines GM has made since the 8.1 liter Vortec in the early 2000s. And this is probably the most diesel-like engine design philosophy. Welcome back, I'm Alex, and you guys seem to love these HD gasser engines, so I figured we'd continue having fun with them. This time, we have a 6.6 liter L8T V8 gasser in this very nice looking gray Chevy 2500. I have reviewed this engine before a couple years back, but I figured we'd loop back around and take another look at this this bad girl L8T V8 gasser Z71, and I do like the badging up here. You got the big 10-speed Allison transmission, which we may or may not talk about. The 6.6 liters of furious displacement. The front ends have improved a little bit, but when these things for this design first came out, I was a little bit, I didn't really like it. The mirrors look a little weird. The hood scoop looks good, although with the gasser, it is absolutely not functional. The Duramax, however, it is a functional hood scoop, and in classic GM form, you have your marker lights. You get the 3 in the center and the 2 on the sides. Kind of a signature look at this point. But yeah, a nice looking truck. The color is pretty slick. The rims look good. And best of all, the engine under the hood is good. It all started in 2020 when GM debuted this L8T V8, replacing the very long-standing 6-liter, which had been around since 1999, 21 years in these GM Chevy HD trucks. And it was time for GM to introduce some new blood into this lineup. And, well, speaking of which, let's get this thing in the shop. We'll pop the hood and we'll take a deep dive at what exactly is going on. And I'll tell you what I like and maybe some things that I don't like. Who the heck put this old Ford here? Now, I don't think there's a bigger rivalry, at least in the pickup truck world, than Ford versus GM. And is it a coincidence that Ford also dropped their 7.3 liter Godzilla in 2020? No, probably not. But I think both manufacturers were onto something. Customers wanted a simple, more reliable, cheaper engine option that could actually be a diesel engine option replacement when it comes to towing and performance, because as we've talked about at length on this channel, modern diesel engines are extremely complex with sometimes questionable reliability. So instead of building a smaller displacement turbocharged forced induction engine like the rest of the automotive industry is doing, GM went back in time, sticking to the basics, going for a big displacement cast iron pushrod 2 valves per cylinder V8 engine, giving their customers that simplicity, but also giving them that power, not from turbochargers, but from cubic inches. And I absolutely love it. You might be thinking, wow, 6.6 liters, 400 cubic inches. This thing must be rocking like 500-600 ponies under that hood. And well, you would be wrong. This ain't some flashy performance engine. This thing is a slow revving, high duty cycle, trailer towing workhorse of an engine. And in fact, this is probably one of the most structurally overbuilt gasoline engines GM has made since the 8.1 liter Vortec in the early 2000s. And this is probably the most diesel-like engine design philosophy. The L8T's core design is around bearing life, heat control, as well as maintaining stiffness well under continuous load. And GM has seemingly sacrificed efficiency for longevity, something we don't really see today with modern pickup truck engines. In fact, well, we did run this thing on my fuel economy loop, finished with just over 15 miles per gallon, but we see the half-ton engines typically all well above 20 miles per gallon. So that is indeed the case. Also, just like the 7.3 Godzilla, this engine has one of the lowest horsepower per liters of displacement, and it goes to show just the durability as well as how overbuilt this engine really is. The 6.6 liter engine is technically a part of the 5th gen small block engine family, which is accompanied by the well-known 5.3 liter as well as the 6.2 and the 1500 engines. In fact, this engine shares a lot of the same architecture as that L87 6.2 liter. And essentially on the surface, what GM did is they took that 6.2 liter engine, extended the stroke to give this engine its 6.6 liters of displacement. And I really like that approach from GM. Diving into the details, despite this engine sharing the same architecture as that 6.2, it is a vastly different engine. And starting from the bottom, we get a cast iron engine block. In fact, this is the only V8 engine that GM currently makes with a cast iron engine block. We get a fully forged crankshaft. We have 6-bolt nodular main caps. We have fully forged powdered I-beam style connecting rods. We also have hyper-eutectic aluminum pistons to really help with thermal management. Unlike the 5.3 and the 6.2, this engine is using thicker high-tension piston rings, which should really help this engine during high-load situations, as well as oil control, although this engine has been known to burn oil, and I have touched on that in the past, and I'll link that video down below. We also get conventional weight oil 5W30, unlike the 5.3 and the 6.2 that are running 0W20, which is questionable in my mind. We also get a variable displacement oil pump, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. In terms of our oil pan, we get a 2-piece oil pan. It's part aluminum, part steel. I am not seeing a 2-piece oil pan down under here. You guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but that just looks like a 1-piece aluminum pan, which I like to see. Nothing wrong with that. Also, our oil filter's leaking a little bit. Sort of see in behind our drive shaft right there. That looks like, I was going to say it's an oil cooler, but I don't think it is. I think what's happening is we're actually sending oil. If you follow these lines, it looks like we might have an external oil cooler up front in behind the rad here, possibly what's going on there, which I like to see. Probably some very heavy cooling on that oil. Moving up top, we have a single timing chain going to our single in-block camshaft. This engine does use variable valve timing. It uses a hydraulic solenoid to shift the camshaft to either retard or advance the engine timing, just depending on driving conditions, to either add some low-end grunt or add some top-end performance. Now, as mentioned, GM uses a very simple valve train. It's a pushrod engine which uses hydraulic roller lifters, 2 valves per cylinder. And what GM has done that I absolutely love is they have thrown out their active fuel management, dynamic fuel management right into the trash. We don't have collapsible lifters on this engine, no cylinder deactivation, and it is a very nice feature on this engine because, as we know, the lifter problems on that 5.3 and the 6.2 are hard to not address, and this thing has none of it. In fact, this is the only gasoline engine GM offers in a pickup truck that does not come with cylinder deactivation. Continuing up, we do have aluminum heads on each side, and again, since this is an in-block cam 2-valve pushrod engine with a very simple valve train, it means that our heads are also going to be very simple as well as compact. And you can see, just like the Godzilla, we have lots of room to play in here. Now, although the Godzilla didn't have these stupid plastic covers on its engine, which I really appreciate. I was just trying to take these off to show you guys the engine a little bit better with my garbage lighting setup here. But so you can see, hopefully, this can't come off unless I take this plastic pipe off, which is fine. But as the years go by, like if I want to take this off, you know, what's to say that plastic sort of clamp fitting thing isn't going to break? Odds are it might. Also, this wiring harness is rubbing right on that, which I don't like to see. You know, it's not the end of the world. It's just, why is this here? We don't need this. Just GM, come on. Take it off, make my life a little bit easier. What I find interesting is the internal workings of this engine are very similar to the 7.3 Godzilla, and that could be because allegedly Ford took a lot of design inspiration from the GM LS engines to make that Godzilla engine. And yes, both engines have different displacements, but the actual internal dimensions of both these engines are pretty similar. Taking the bore-to-stroke ratio, for example, we have 1.05 versus 1.06. Very, very similar. Both engines are a rather long-stroked V8 engine, so they should have very similar power and torque deliveries, which is a good thing because that Godzilla engine is a bit of a beast. In terms of fueling, that is where the similarities end. And this is one item that I wish GM did not carry over to this engine from the lighter duty 6.2, and that is direct injection. Now, clearly there are some nice benefits of having direct injection, like better throttle response, more precise control of your fuel delivery, which is going to add or give this engine a better fuel burn, which could lead to some better fuel economy as well as more precise power delivery. But unfortunately, there are a number of drawbacks. First is that over the years, there is the possibility of carbon deposits building up on your intake and your intake valve, and that can slowly restrict airflow into the engine, reducing power, and just not a good thing. And it is very difficult to clean up that carbon if it starts to deposit, especially since GM does not use dual injection on this engine like Ford and Toyota have been doing on their 1500 or half-ton engines for years now. I hope with this new generation of V8 engines that GM is supposed to be releasing, I think in 2027, I hope they have dual injection, because having dual injection really helps minimize and even stop any carbon buildup from happening in the first place. The second thing I don't like about a direct injection fueling system is it adds quite a bit more complexity. Our fuel system is now going to be running at thousands of PSI of fuel pressure. We also have a high pressure fuel pump, and on this engine, it is at the back of the engine. It's run off the rear of the camshaft. All right, this is the back of our engine here. We got our flex plate. We got one bank over here. We got another bank here with our piston. And this right here is our high pressure fuel pump. You can see it's sort of right behind our intake manifold, the plastic intake manifold. And it is run off our camshaft, which is this thing right here. And there are 3 lobes on the back of this camshaft that push up on this plunger. And that is what pressurizes the fuel. You can see we have a sensor right here. I would imagine there's probably going to be some fuel lines running to this. This is just a cutout of the back of the engine, which is why there probably isn't any fuel lines in this picture. But yes, our high pressure fuel pump is at the back of the engine, and it is a little bit buried. Tried to get this plastic piece off. Absolute bit of a nightmare. The amount of plastic clips you have to take off. There's clips all in behind here. Kind of a bit of a joke, actually, Jam. But I wanted to show you guys. I was trying to see if we could see the high pressure fuel pump, but I can feel it right there. That's how far back this this high pressure fuel pump. And so you got fuel lines all running back here. Also, your rails are all back here too. It just makes working on this or having to repair it probably pretty difficult, seeing that I can't even actually see the frickin' thing. So there you go. That's where your high pressure fuel pump is. Ugh. So as you guys can see, it's a little bit buried back there, and while high pressure fuel pumps are under a lot of pressure, usually have very tight tolerances, and as a diesel mechanic working on high pressure diesel fuel systems, I've replaced a lot of high pressure fuel pumps, and I would not be surprised if you own this engine for a long period of time, if that could be a repair that you might have to get into. And with it being where it is, it's going to be a pain to try and repair it. Or even if you have a fuel leak or fuel lines that potentially fail going back to that pump, it could be a nightmare to get back in there. Whereas the 7.3 Godzilla with its port injection fueling system was wide open. I could literally touch the fueling system. I could touch the low pressure fuel rails. The injectors were easily accessible. All the fuel lines were literally right in front of your face. And it's a big difference in comparison to this engine. I mean, you can see we have a single fuel line coming in from the back, from our fuel tank into our rail here. Fuel line going over to our other rail. It's all right in front of you. It's simple, tried and true technology that works and has just very limited failure points. Additionally to our high pressure fuel pump, we have high pressure fuel rails which feed our high pressure injectors, both of which sit in the valley of the engine underneath our intake manifold. Coming back to a nice cutaway picture, this right here is a high pressure fuel rail. I believe this is as well. And you can see it is underneath our intake manifold. This right here looks like daylight. And running off our high pressure fuel rails is our direct injectors. There's going to be 8 of these, obviously, and the tip is right in the combustion chamber, which makes it a direct injection setup. And like I talked about, these tips are right in the combustion zone. There can be a lot of stress and force and pressure applied to this tip, and sometimes, in the diesel world at least, we see them fail.
Gonna pull an injector out of here, boys and girls. Pretty straightforward. It's the last one we're pulling. That one's out. There she is, in all her glory.
So if anything was to happen to either an injector or a high pressure fuel rail, maybe a fitting was leaking, it would be a very big task to get in there. The whole intake manifold would have to come off. Whereas on the 7.3 Godzilla, your injectors are extremely accessible and should lead to a much easier repair if you do need to replace these. Direct injection has obviously a number of benefits. I think it's great for a performance-based engine. It makes sense there. But in a HD pickup truck that's likely going to have a lot of idling hours on it, and we're not looking for that top-end performance, I just wish GM went with a port injection fueling solution. Lastly on this topic is oil change intervals. This engine under normal driving conditions is supposed to change its oil every 7,500 miles, 12,000 kilometers, or once every year. Even though this engine with its 7,500 mile oil change interval is very similar to the HEMI and the Godzilla, with direct injection fueling system, it makes timely oil changes far more critical because we are spraying fuel directly into the combustion chamber, and at times raw fuel can slip by the piston rings as well as microscopic soot particles from direct injection, and it can mix in with the oil, especially during idling, cold starts, or heavy towing. Over time, with fuel dilution in the oil, it thins the oil as well as weakens its film strength. Also, the microscopic carbon and soot particles that are much more heavily produced with a direct injection fueling system can also wear engine bearings as well as piston rings more rapidly. And this is why I think it's critical with a direct injection engine to change your oil on a timely basis. As much as I don't like a 7,500 mile oil change interval on any HD engine, I think this engine should probably run around 5,000 miles. At least that's what I would do if I owned this engine. So take it or leave it. All right, I figured take this thing for a spin. I do feel like the transmission is, I want to say almost like clunky. I don't know if that's fair, but that's what it sort of feels like. But in terms of power, I mean, it's there. It's not gonna blow your socks off, but you can just feel this thing's got a lot of torque. And, you know, on the upper end, when you step on it, it's not like, again, it's gonna blow your hair back, but the low end grunt, you can just feel this thing wants to pull. Being completely honest, driving the 6.8 liter mini Godzilla about a week and a half ago, it felt much smoother. The shifting was much crisper, and it just felt like a much more seamless package where, again, I just feel like the transmission with this engine, it's a little bit clunky. Let me know if you guys agree with that. Yeah, it just doesn't have that sort of snappiness that the Ford had. It does feel much more truck-like, and I can't complain about it. I mean, nor should anyone who's looking to buy a 2500 HD pickup truck. But the good thing is that we've got plenty of get up and go out of this big displacement gas engine, and that's exactly what you want. So that's the basics on this 6.6 liter L8T V8 engine, and I think GM got it mostly right. I love that this engine has the lowest bore-to-stroke ratio out of any HD gas engine in the segment, and that GM purposely extended the stroke of this engine to really make it a torque-heavy HD gas engine, exactly what you want in a 2500 pickup truck. I love that GM threw the cylinder deactivation technology right in the trash for this engine. I also like that GM went back to a cast iron block, thick cylinder liners. We have 6-bolt mains, fully forged crankshaft, billet steel camshaft, with an engine only making 400 horsepower out of a 6.6 liter displacement engine. This thing is going to have superior durability. My biggest gripe with this 6.6 liter is the direct injection, but it's not the end of the world. And for those who are not looking to step up to the Big Daddy 6.6 liter Duramax, don't want to spend the money, don't want the complexity or potentially the headaches down the road, this is a very good option and should not be looked down upon as the base model, only the gas engine. When in reality, and I've said it many times before, I feel like these HD gassers are more reliable than their diesel counterparts. And you guys can let me know if you agree with that. Anyways, fellas, that is the 6.6 liter gasser from GM. Let me know what you guys think. If you own this engine, do you like it? Do you wish you went up to the diesel, or are you happy with just this nice old school big displacement gas V8 engine? I always like hearing from real world owners. If you did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe, because we always love having you on board. Anyways, enough of me. We'll see you on the next frickin' video.